Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS. Good morning. I'm recording this one early. It's Friday, NFL Week 1. I got to get these videos out. Don't have time to wait for my coffee to kick in. Panthers Saints. Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome to the SWUS. The SWUS. SWUS. Hey, get the SWUS.
All right, like I said, Carolina on the road in New Orleans for this one. Saints are laying 4 points at home. This line's been pretty consistent. I saw 4.5 for a little while. I saw 3.5 for a little while. Pretty much sitting at 4 across the board here. Total sitting at 41.5. So let's go ahead and get into this one, and we'll start by taking a look at the head-to-head history here. Kind of back and forth recently. The Saints swept Carolina last year, but the year before that, Carolina swept the Saints. But the most interesting part of this graphic, 8 consecutive unders. There's been 8 straight unders between the Saints and Panthers. So there's a nice little pattern for you there. But anyway, let's take a look at this matchup. Dave Canales taking over at head coach for Carolina, and he's made it pretty clear that they want to run the football here at Carolina. I believe the phrase he used was, "We're going to be stubborn with the run." Regardless of what you think about that, might be a really good game plan against this Saints defense. I mean, Saints run defense really took a nosedive last season. 4.4 yards per carry allowed. That's 22nd in the NFL. Didn't give up a ton of points, but 25th in run defense DVOA. And here's the thing with the Saints defense. They were so good against the run under Dennis Allen for years. I mean, dating back to the Sean Payton years, that we kind of took it for granted. And now that we're looking at it and we see a year where the Saints run defense is bottom half of the NFL, I don't even know if it's going to get better. I mean, these pieces that made the Saints a great run defense for years, they're aging. Demario Davis is 35 years old now. Cam Jordan, 35 years old now. This Saints defense fell off against the run last year. And what did they really do to fix it? I mean, they brought in Willie Gay from Kansas City. That's definitely going to help, but Willie Gay was on the Chiefs last year, and the Chiefs had a terrible run defense. So it's not like you add Willie Gay and all of a sudden your run defense is back. I don't think it's going to get better. I think teams are going to be able to run the football on the Saints again this year. And now you might be thinking, Kyle, but it's the Panthers. Their offensive line was terrible last year. Chuba Hubbard is the running back. Jonathan Brooks is hurt. And one thing I'll say about Chuba Hubbard is everyone seems pretty comfortable just writing this dude off. Rewind to 2 years ago, and he was looking pretty good. He only got 95 carries in the 2022-2023 season. 466 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. For those of you that like next-gen stats, he was one of the most efficient RBs in advanced metrics in the NFL that year. First in effective RB grade, first in time behind the line of scrimmage, meaning he was a north-south runner, 9th in the entire NFL in yards per carry. By no means am I saying, Chuba Hubbard's top 10 RB or anything like that. I'm just saying this guy, if you give him the opportunity, he can be an efficient runner. And now let's talk about the Panthers offensive line. And yeah, this is a pretty ugly graphic here. 27th and 28th in run blocking, 27th and 30th in pass protection. Certainly wasn't a good offensive line at all last year, but they addressed this. What were the weakest spots of the Panthers offensive line last year? The guard positions. I mean, they're set at tackles and center. They paid all these guys. I actually think the Panthers might have the highest paid offensive line in the NFL. Don't quote me on that. Someone in the comments, let me know if that's correct. I'm not going to stop recording to go look it up, but I think I heard that. But anyway, they paid these guys. Last year at the guard position, they had 5 or 6 different guys start a game. In fact, I think at one point they had the 6th guard on the depth chart starting. So a combination of injuries, inconsistent production. The guard position was a nightmare for the Panthers. Oh, and Christensen also missed the entire season. So the guard position was just a nightmare for the Panthers last year. But they solved that. They went and spent money, brought in 2 huge upgrades at guard. Robert Hunt from the Dolphins, Damian Lewis. I mean, they brought in 2 legitimate guards here. Now, whether or not that translates into a good offensive line, we'll have to wait and see. But no question, on paper, the Panthers offensive line took a major step forward. Let's not forget that Carolina was able to run on this Saints defense last year. 5.2 yards per carry, 5.3 yards per carry in the 2 games. I think Carolina's offensive line got better, and I think the Saints defensive front may have gotten worse. They certainly aged another year. So yeah, I think the Panthers are going to run the ball on the Saints in this game. Now, what about Bryce Young? And this is where it gets a little rocky for Carolina. I mean, didn't have much to work with last year, but also recorded what might have been the worst season by a quarterback in NFL history. Last year as a rookie, he had negative 1,079 passing DYAR. Now that's defense adjusted yards above replacement. That's the third worst in the history of the NFL. His 9.1 yards per completion, ninth worst in NFL history ever. The Carolina Panthers overall offensive DVOA ranks last season second worst in team history in overall DVOA and offensive DVOA. This is a record-setting year last year for the Panthers offense, but like we mentioned before, they bring in a new coach, Dave Canales. He comes from the Bucs, and I mean, certainly Baker Mayfield had a good season under him last year. One thing I will say, not very good on early downs. Bucs actually led the NFL in third down frequency, but here's the thing, they were good as shit on third downs. Baker Mayfield, 23rd best on first and second down last year, but fourth best on third and fourth down. So he made the right play calls when it mattered. We'll give him some credit for that. And third down conversions is definitely something the Panthers need. Tampa Bay, top 10 offense converting third downs last year. Carolina, one of the worst in football. There's really not much more we can say on this side of the ball. I mean, we can take a look at Bryce Young's numbers against man coverage. Obviously, he's playing the Saints. He's going to see a ton of man coverage. Saints, 59% of their defensive snaps in pass coverage last year were in man, second most in the NFL. Bryce Young, awful passing numbers against man coverage, but he also has awful passing numbers against zone coverage as well. So that doesn't really tell us anything. Also, Panthers made a move here to help with this. They bring in Deontay Johnson, who's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL at beating man coverage. Fifth amongst 94 qualified wide receivers last year in yards after catch per catch and fourth in yards per catch. So Deontay Johnson, excellent numbers beating man coverage. Might be just what Bryce Young needs in this particular matchup. So overall on this side, like I said, I think the Panthers are able to move the football in this game. I think they'll get the run game going a little bit. I think they'll be able to keep the chains moving. Now, will they be able to finish drives and punch it in for some touchdowns instead of settling for field goals? That's a different question. Will Bryce Young take a step forward against the Saints secondary? That's pretty good. That's a different question. But I do think they'll be able to run the ball a little bit in this game. Now, on the other side, we got the Saints offense against the Panthers defense. And in my opinion, this side's a little bit more difficult to make a prediction. On the surface, the Saints offensive line was pretty good in pass protection last year. Fourth in the NFL in pressure rate allowed, eighth in adjusted sack rate. So why were they just 25th in pass blocking grade overall? Well, number one, they don't play a ton of good pass rushes. They have a relatively easy schedule. They play in the NFC South, but also sixth fastest time to throw in the NFL. So similar to Jacksonville, similar to Miami, Derek Carr gets the ball out quick, which hides some of the problems the offensive line had in pass protection. And it may even be worse this year. They take two losses on the offensive line. Ryan Ramczyk is gone, and James Hurst, also retired. So two of the better offensive linemen in terms of pass protection last year for the Saints no longer there this year. So I definitely worry about the Saints keeping Derek Carr clean in the pocket this year. Now, they did use their first-round pick on a left tackle, Fuaga. Injured his back in training camp. Now, from what I'm reading, he's going to be good to go. Definitely not what you love to see, your first-round pick injuring his back in training camp. But I think, like I said, he's going to play in week one. Lucas Patrick, they brought in to play left guard. Look, his pass blocking metrics are pretty ugly looking. Same goes for Trevor Penning, who was their rookie last year. But both those guys, from what I'm reading, are actually pretty good at creating space in the run game. And the Saints offensive line as a whole was underrated in run blocking. They were actually 7th in the NFL in adjusted line yards. So they were creating some space. What happened then? How were their rushing numbers so bad last year? Well, number one, Alvin Kamara didn't play well last year. And number two, the play calling was heavily criticized as being extremely predictable. I'm sure a Saints fan, you know what, if you're a Saints fan, leave your comment on the play calling down low. I'm sure they have some things to say about it. I do have some good news for the Saints offensive line in this week one matchup, though. Carolina's defensive front is a little bit of a question mark here. Look at their metrics from last year. 27th in adjusted line yards, 30th in adjusted sack rate, bottom 5 in both of those categories. Well, bottom 6, I should say. And they lose Brian Burns this year, who's been a key piece on that defense for years now. Now, they did add pieces here. They bring in Josie Jewell at linebacker. Jadeveon Clowney's here. A'Shawn Robinson. They brought in DJ Wanham, too. But as far as this matchup in week one, it's a bunch of pieces that have never played together, never played on this team before. DJ Wanham's out, by the way. Jadeveon Clowney, I mean, coming off a good season with a Super Bowl contender in Baltimore, if we go by Jadeveon Clowney's patterns, Usually, he has a good season on Contender, gets paid by a bad team, and then doesn't show up the following year. Look, not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying we've seen it before. So despite adding these new pieces, I wouldn't say Carolina's defensive front is upgraded. Certainly not for week 1. Maybe a few weeks into the season, we could put some trust in this unit, but not in week 1. Also, took some hits in the secondary. We'll talk about that in a second, though. First, let's go to their pass rush numbers, or lack of a pass rush, as I should say. 30th in pressure rate, 30th in adjusted sack rate. I mean, we just talked about how the weakness of this Saints offensive line is going to be pass protection. Is Carolina the defense that can exploit it? I don't think so. Now, Carolina did play good defense against the pass last year. Just 6.1 yards per pass attempt allowed, which is 6th best in the NFL. Now, the schedule adjusted metrics are back at 17th and 20th because, again, like I said about the Saints, they play in the NFC South. They play a very easy schedule. But they were able to do a good defensive job against Derek Carr last year. Just 62.9% completions against the Saints. 5.6 yards per attempt is terrible. Just a 75 passer rating. So Derek Carr struggled with this defense last year. But one thing I'll say here, let's bring up the depth chart again. They took losses in the secondary as well. Their number 2 corner from last year, Dante Jackson Jr., he's been traded. Jeremy Chin, he was with the team last year. I mean, he was injured for a lot of the year, but he was there last year. He's gone as well. They bring in Dane Jackson. He's on the IR. So this secondary, despite having a healthy J.C. Horn, they also have Jordan Fuller back there as well. It's not in great shape for week 1. So I know Derek Carr struggled to throw the ball on this team last year. I think he should be able to throw the ball a little bit on them this year, especially because Panthers aren't really equipped to take advantage of the Saints' weak pass protection, or a pass protection I think is going to be weak. So where does that leave us in terms of placing a bet? Well, I think both offenses are going to be able to move the ball here, so I would lean towards an over, but I do have a bet on this game. What I actually placed is Carolina +4. I know I just got done saying how I think Derek Carr should be able to throw the ball on this defense, do a better job against this defense than he did last year. But like I said earlier, I like Carolina to run the football in this game. And if the Panthers are able to get the run going and move the chains on the ground, I don't think either team has any business laying more than a field goal. So I'm on Carolina +4. It's not one of my huge bets this week, but I think it's the right side. Panthers +4. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see all the bets I have open as well as everyone on the staff here. So head over there if you're interested. Also, if you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $150 and a trophy go to the winner every single week. So yeah, head over to the website if you're interested in that. Live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time on the weekdays. The 2 big shows are on the weekends, 10 a.m. Eastern time, college football. Saturday show up till kickoff. Sunday NFL show, 11 a.m. to kickoff. Let's have ourselves a nice NFL week 1. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.